If you are receiving Social Security payments currently, or you are nearing retirement age and intending to apply in the near future, you must focus carefully on developments that have occurred in the United States Senate during recent months since the lawmaking efforts involving Social Security throughout 2025 and continuing into 2026 have been more substantial than anything people in retirement have witnessed in a long time. Certain of these adjustments are already enacted. Additional ones are progressing through Congress with actual support, and every one of them carries immediate consequences for the sum of funds that reaches your bank account each and every month. This is not partisan conjecture. These are actual proposals, actual decisions, actual policy adjustments, and I am going to guide you through each and every one of them in straightforward terms so that by the moment you conclude, you will understand precisely what has already been modified, what continues to be discussed, and what actions you ought to be pursuing immediately to safeguard and optimize the payments you have devoted your whole career building. Let us begin with an element that is basic because it counts, and because far too many individuals in Washington discuss Social Security in a manner that seems removed from the facts of everyday existence. Social Security is not a federal giveaway. It is not assistance. It is not a gift. It is an agreement. For generations, employed citizens contributed to this program with each and every paycheck. The funds were deducted before they ever received them. They had no option. They paid consistently during strong financial periods and difficult ones, during downturns and expansions, during conflicts and health crises, and they were assured that when they attained retirement age, those funds would be available for them. For countless older adults now, that assurance represents the distinction between self-reliance and hardship. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, drawing on census information, in the absence of Social Security payments, roughly 37% of citizens aged 65 and above would drop beneath the poverty threshold. With Social Security, that figure falls to below 9%. That is not a number to overlook. That is a remarkable truth regarding how vital this initiative is to the structure of everyday existence for aging citizens. And still, year upon year, people in retirement have observed their spending ability diminish. They have observed the price of food items increase, the price of prescriptions grow, the price of shelter become ever more challenging, while their Social Security deposits fought to match. The modifications they obtained, what the authorities refer to as cost of living modifications or COLA, were determined using a method that numerous supporters and analysts have contended for years plainly fails to mirror how older adults truly allocate their funds. Here is the main issue. The method employed by the national government to determine COLA is referred to as the CPI-W, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. It monitors costs according to the purchasing patterns of individuals who remain employed. Individuals who allocate their money quite differently than those in retirement do. Working-age citizens devote proportionally greater amounts to areas like commuting, devices, and leisure. Retired citizens devote a far larger portion of their funds to medical care, prescription medications, and shelter. And medical care expenses, as every older adult in this nation recognizes personally, have been escalating much more rapidly than overall inflation for years. So what occurs is this. The government determines the yearly COLA using a method that gives less emphasis to the areas where older adults devote the greatest amounts and gives more emphasis to areas they scarcely devote resources to any longer. The outcome is that the yearly rise people in retirement obtain does not truly address what their existence costs. They slip a bit more behind each year. The Senior Citizens League released findings in October 2025, indicating that this shortfall accumulated over time has deprived retirees of considerable buying ability across the previous 20 years. For 2026, the formal COLA stood at 2.8%, which corresponds to roughly $56 per month for the typical retired employee, raising the typical monthly payment to about $2,071. Meanwhile, the Medicare Part B premium rose to $202.90 per month, a 9.7% rise, which absorbed a substantial part of that COLA rise before retirees ever noticed it in their bank accounts. This is the trend that has irritated older adults for years, and it is the trend that various pieces of legislation in the Senate are presently seeking to tackle. The first significant lawmaking advance is one that has already turned into statute, and if you are a retired government employee, This one could directly impact you. The Social Security Fairness Act was enacted on January 5, 2025. This measure removed two rules that had disadvantaged millions of retired public employees for generations: the windfall elimination provision known as WEP and the government pension offset known as GPO. These rules impacted around 3 million citizens, retired educators, law enforcement, firefighters, and additional public sector staff in numerous states who had divided work histories employed both in public roles covered by government pensions and in private roles where they contributed Social Security taxes. The calculations used to determine their payments unjustly lowered what they obtained. A retired educator in Ohio or Texas, who likewise held part-time positions for decades, contributing Social Security taxes reliably on that earnings, saw their payments cut in manners that held no relation to the payments they truly provided. The Fairness Act terminated this. It applies backward to January 2024, meaning December 2023 represented the final month WEP and GPO were in force. As of March 2026, the Social Security Administration has handled over 3.1 million backward payments, amounting to approximately $17 billion, with an average backward payment of about $6,110 per individual. However, execution has not been smooth. A March 2026 analysis from Government Executive indicated that certain retirees are still awaiting their complete recalculated payments more than a year after the measure was enacted. If you think you are impacted and have not yet obtained your modification, reach out to the Social Security Administration immediately. The second significant advance is a group of proposals presently advancing through the Senate that would modify the COLA method itself. The most prominent is the Boosting Benefits and COLA for Seniors Act, presented as Senate Bill 3529 in October 2025. This measure suggests substituting the CPI-W with the CPI-E, the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. The CPI-E is purposely created to capture how aging citizens truly allocate their funds, assigning greater emphasis to medical care expenses, prescription medications, and shelter. Studies from support groups indicate that if the CPI-E had been applied across the previous 20 years, rather than the CPI-W, numerous retirees would be obtaining noticeably greater monthly payments now. It is essential to be precise about the existing position of this proposal. As of April 2026, the Boosting Benefits and COLA for Seniors Act has been presented but has not been approved into statute. It is a suggestion, not yet an actuality, but the reality that it has support from both parties and that various comparable proposals have been presented in both houses, including the wider Social Security Expansion Act, Senate Bill 770 presented in February 2025, indicates that the political demand on this matter has attained a point that Congress is finding progressively challenging to disregard. Older adults and support groups including AARP, the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, and community organizations of retired educators, public employees, and armed forces staff have been exerting constant demand. Letters, telephone calls, filled community meetings, and coordinated initiatives have gradually altered the political considerations for representatives on both sides of the aisle. The third vital aspect is long-term solvency, and this is where the discussion becomes tougher but completely necessary. The Social Security trust funds have been facing growing monetary strain. In February 2026, the Congressional Budget Office issued revised forecasts showing that the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund is expected to be depleted by 2032, 1 year sooner than formerly projected. The Social Security trustees' own most recent analysis projected depletion by 2033. These are not identical dates, but they fall in the same range, and the trend is not positive. It is extremely important to grasp what depletion signifies and what it does not signify. It does not mean Social Security vanishes. Payroll taxes would keep entering the program. But under existing statute, once the trust fund balances are depleted, payments would automatically be lowered to align with incoming funds. The CBO estimates that lowering could amount to approximately 21 to 28% overall. For a retiree obtaining $2,000 per month, that could signify a lowering of $400 to $560 each and every month. For an individual living on a steady income, That is the distinction between covering utility costs and not covering them, between managing medication and doing without. This is why the solvency discussion counts so greatly, and it is where some of the most intense political arguments are taking place. One of the most examined suggestions is increasing the limit on income subject to Social Security payroll taxes. In 2026, the taxable maximum stands at $184,500. That means an individual earning $500,000 a year contributes the identical dollar sum in Social Security payroll taxes as an individual earning $184,500. Everything beyond that limit is exempt. Many supporters and several proposals in Congress, including the Social Security Expansion Act, suggest applying payroll taxes to income above $400,000 or removing the limit completely. Supporters contend this would create huge extra funds and prolong the program's solvency for decades without lowering payments. Others resist the method, contending it would represent a major tax rise on higher earners. The argument is continuing, but the reality that this discussion is occurring with true urgency shows real advancement compared to years of inactivity. Now let us discuss what all of this signifies for you personally and realistically. If you are already obtaining Social Security payments, the most urgent action to take is confirm your details with the Social Security Administration are up to date. Establish or access your My Social Security account at ssa.gov. That site provides you entry to your earnings history, your payment estimates, and formal notices. If you are not at ease online, you can telephone the SSA at 1-800-772-1213, Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning to 7 in the evening, Eastern Time, or go to a nearby field office in person. Examine your earnings history thoroughly and confirm every year of your employment record is correctly shown. Mistakes are more frequent than individuals recognize, and an omitted year or wrong earnings amount can lower your payment. If you notice an error, ask for a fix right away. If you are impacted by the WEP or GPO removal under the Social Security Fairness Act and have not yet obtained your recalculated payment or backward payment, contact the SSA immediately. As of early 2026, some situations were still being handled, and bipartisan groups of senators have been urging the agency to speed up payments and fulfill the complete backward period going back to January 2024. If you are nearing retirement and have not yet applied, recognize that the basic rule still applies. For every year you postpone applying beyond your full retirement age up to age 70, your monthly payment grows by approximately 8% per year, which equals 0.23% per month. That is a guaranteed inflation-adjusted growth that is extremely hard to equal in any investment environment. Whether postponing is appropriate depends on your wellness, your monetary requirements, your additional income sources, and your spouse's circumstances. But the lawmaking advances we have covered, especially the potential of a more supportive COLA method in the future, indicate that the base payment itself may become more beneficial over time, which is an extra element to consider in your applying approach. One subject that receives far too little focus is the effect on spousal and survivor payments. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse generally obtains the larger of the two payments the pair was obtaining. That means choices about when and how to apply are not just individual choices. They are choices that impact your partner possibly for the rest of their life. Given the adjustments being examined and put into effect right now, it is more essential than ever that pairs consider their Social Security approach together, preferably with advice from someone who comprehends both the existing regulations and the adjustments that may be arriving. Let us also be straightforward about something. Older adults did not reach this point by being inactive. The Social Security Fairness Act did not pass because politicians awoke one morning feeling charitable. It passed because millions of impacted retirees and their supporters coordinated, exerted demand, and made it politically impossible to overlook the matter any longer. The existing support behind COLA reform and solvency steps exists for the identical reason. Older adults vote in huge numbers across party lines, and when they are together on a matter, they represent an unbeatable political power. Every retiree who sent a letter, placed a telephone call, appeared at a community meeting, or endorsed a petition added to where matters stand today. There is one additional aspect that merits focus. Many older adults are not solely concerned about their own payments. They are concerned about their children and grandchildren, about whether Social Security will remain for the following generation. The trust fund forecast can appear worrying, and they should be regarded seriously. But it is also essential to recognize that Social Security has encountered solvency difficulties before, most notably in the early 1980s, and Congress moved to strengthen the program. The existing lawmaking effort, if it produces meaningful reform of the funding structure, could prolong the program's duration for decades. That wider assurance, safeguarding Social Security, not just for current retirees but for coming generations, is part of what renders this period so meaningful. The bottom line is this: actual adjustments have taken place. The WEP and GPO are eliminated. Backward payments totaling $17 billion have been issued. The 2026 COLA of 2.8% is active, and various proposals addressing the COLA method and long-term solvency are moving through Congress with greater backing than comparable suggestions have received in years. Not everything has been settled. There are challenges ahead, but the direction has moved. The support is genuine, and older adults who remain involved, remain knowledgeable, and keep expressing their opinions are the cause it is occurring. You devoted your whole life for these payments. You earned them with your effort, your dedication, and your decades of reliable contributions. And the effort to safeguard them and improve them is one of the most vital efforts of our era. Stay knowledgeable, confirm everything through official channels, and ensure the individuals you care about understand what is occurring with the program that millions of Americans rely on every single